All right, so we're living in this new era of AI, right? And that brings up a really big question. Who's watching it? Who's making sure it's all on the up and up? Well, today we're going to dive deep into one of the EU's biggest answers to that question. We're talking about Article 89 of the brand new AI Act. This is the rule that basically creates the official watchdog for some of the world's most powerful AI models. And just so you know, this analysis was carried out under the scientific supervision of Professor Vihar Kiskinov. So, to really get our heads around what this new watchdog is all about, we're going to break it down into 5 parts. First, we'll look at why it was needed in the first place. Then, we'll get into the legislative fight that shaped it. After that, we'll check out the tools it actually has to do its job, see who gets to complain if things go wrong, and finally, we'll talk about what this all means for you and me in the real world. Okay, so first up, AI's new watchdog. What was the big problem that needed this brand new solution anyway? Well, you have to imagine the lawmakers. They were basically staring at a whole new kind of beast. We're talking about these incredibly powerful general-purpose AIs that just wouldn't fit into any of the old boxes. It was like trying to regulate a shapeshifter, you know? The question was huge. How on earth do you create rules for something so powerful and, honestly, so unpredictable? And at the very center of this whole puzzle is something called a general-purpose AI model, or GPAI for short. Now, this isn't the kind of AI you're used to, one that just does a single thing really well. No, a GPI model is, well, it's a jack of all trades and a master of many. It can handle a huge range of different tasks. And that versatility, it's its greatest strength. It's superpower. But it's also what makes it so incredibly hard to regulate. So what was the EU's answer to this puzzle? It's Article 89. This piece of the law is what actually creates the AI office. Think of it as a central watchdog, a new authority specifically designed to keep an eye on these huge, foundational AI models. It's kind of like having a specialized regulator just for the powerful engines that are running more and more of the AI tools we use every single day. All right, next section, forging the rules. Now, a solution like this doesn't just pop out of nowhere, right? The creation of Article 89 was, well, it was basically a high-stakes legislative sprint. It's a story packed with intense debates and some really critical compromises that ended up shaping the law we have today. And when I say sprint, I mean it. Things moved incredibly fast. Think about it. In January 2024, you had the EU Council proposing these really broad monitoring powers for the new AI office. But then just 2 months later, in March, the Parliament came in and pushed for something much narrower, much more focused. And guess what? Parliament's version won out. By July, the final, more targeted version was officially law. That's a huge shift in just a few months. And this really gets to the heart of the debate that defined the whole process. The central question was pretty simple, but really important. Just how far should this watchdog's reach extend? Were they going to give it sweeping authority to look into everything, or a much more targeted, limited role? Believe it or not, this entire high-stakes debate basically came down to a single word. The first proposal said the AI office should monitor compliance with this chapter, which would have given it a really, really broad mandate. But the final text, it changed that word to this section. Now, I know that might sound like a tiny, insignificant change, but in the world of law, a change like that is huge. It has massive implications. So what's the bottom line here? The result is a much more targeted oversight role for the AI office. It's not policing the entire universe of high-risk AI. Instead, its job is laser-focused on one thing: making sure the companies that provide these big foundational GPAI models are actually following their specific set of roles. Okay, Section 3, the monitoring toolkit. We've got the rules, but how does the AI office actually enforce them? What tools does it have to do its job? Let's take a look. So the AI office basically works in 2 main ways. You've got proactive monitoring and reactive monitoring. Proactive is when the AI office goes looking for trouble on its own, analyzing the market, assessing risks. And then reactive is, well, it's just what it sounds like. It's triggered when something else happens, like a company files a complaint or a serious incident gets reported. And that reactive process is pretty straightforward. Here's how it works. First, a complaint gets filed. Then the AI office takes a look and assesses it. Is it a legitimate complaint? Is it something they can even deal with? And if the answer is yes, an investigation kicks off, and the office starts gathering information from the GPI provider.
All right, on to Section 4, the right to complain. See, this whole monitoring system isn't just a one-way street. We've talked about what the AI office can do, but Article 89 also gives a really powerful voice to the businesses that are actually using these big AI models.
And this group has a name. They're called downstream providers. That's basically any company or developer who takes one of these big general-purpose AI models and integrates it into their own product or service. They're a really critical part of the whole AI value chain. Now, to make sure these complaints are legit and can actually be acted on, the law is pretty clear about what they need to include. You can't just send a vague email. A downstream provider has to include the contact info for the GPAI provider, a clear description of what went wrong and which rules they think were broken, and an explanation for why they think the rules were broken. And of course, any proof they have to back it all up. Okay, we've gone through all the legal details. But what does this all actually mean in the real world? For our last section, let's zoom out and look at the real-world impact. What Article 89 means for developers, for businesses, and yeah, for you. So if you're an AI developer building these big models, the takeaway is pretty clear. You've got new transparency rules to follow, and now there's a single EU-level authority, the AI office, that's specifically watching to make sure you're complying with them. And what about for the businesses using AI? For those downstream providers? This is a huge deal, a real game changer. For the first time, they have a direct channel to a regulator. They can report suspected problems and actually hold the creators of these big models accountable. And finally, for the public, for all of us, this is really significant. It means there is now a dedicated body in the EU whose job it is to oversee the foundational models that power so many of the AI services we use every single day, whether we realize it or not. So what's the big takeaway from all this? There's a quote from the analysis that I think sums it up perfectly. It says that the evolution of Article 89 led to a more precisely defined and, well, a somewhat restricted role for the AI office, while at the same time it preserved and even strengthened the rights of those downstream providers. It's all about that balance. And that really leaves us with one last really big question. The EU has built its watchdog. It's created this whole new framework for AI oversight. But we all know how fast technology moves. So in this global race to regulate AI, you have to wonder, is this new watchdog agile enough to actually keep up?